Chapter 1. The Shattered Chalice. The autumn of 1927 was crisp and golden, and the English countryside wore its russet hues with a quiet dignity that Hercule Poirot found most agreeable. The little Belgian detective, his moustache impeccably waxed, sat beside Captain Arthur Hastings in the back of a chauffeured Rolls-Royce, the vehicle gliding smoothly toward Vane Manor. The invitation had come unexpectedly, penned in the elegant hand of Sir Reginald Vane, a baronet of considerable wealth and an avid collector of rare antiquities. The occasion was the unveiling of a masterpiece, a glass chalice crafted by the renowned French artisan Madame Celeste Fournier, said to rival the treasures of Murano. "Mon ami Hastings," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming with anticipation, "this chalice, it is not merely glass, no. It is a work of art, a symphony in crystal, and Sir Reginald assures me it holds secrets of its own." "I am most curious, Hastings." Ever the practical Englishman adjusted his hat and frowned. "Secret, Poirot? It's just a fancy goblet, isn't it? I mean, why all the fuss for a bit of glass?" Poirot's lips twitched in a smile. "Ah, Hastings, you see, but you do not observe. The beauty of glass lies in its fragility, its transparency, yet it conceals as much as it reveals. I suspect this evening will be illuminating." Vane Manor loomed into view, its Georgian facade aglow with the warm light of countless windows. The estate was a monument to opulence, its sprawling gardens framed by ancient oaks. As the car rolled to a stop, a footman ushered them into a grand hall adorned with tapestries and marble busts. Sir Reginald Vane, a portly man with a florid complexion and a booming voice, greeted them heartily. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, welcome, welcome." Sir Reginald's eyes sparkled with pride. "You've arrived just in time for the grand reveal. The chalice is the jewel of my collection, crafted by Madame Fournier herself. Come, let me show you." The guests, a glittering assembly of society's elite, were gathered in the drawing-room, where a velvet-draped pedestal stood beneath a chandelier that cast prismatic light across the room. Among them, Poirot noted a few faces. Lady Evelyn Vane, Sir Reginald's poised but distant wife; Lionel Vane, their ambitious nephew with a sharp gaze; and Dr. Alistair Crane, an archaeologist with a nervous air, clutching a glass of sherry. Most striking was Madame Celeste Fournier herself, a woman of middle years with raven hair and eyes that seemed to burn with an inner fire. She stood apart, her silk gown shimmering like molten glass, her expression unreadable. Sir Reginald clapped his hands, drawing attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, behold the Chalice of St. Clair." With a flourish, he whisked away the velvet cloth, revealing a goblet of breathtaking beauty. Its delicate stem twisted like a vine, and its bowl, etched with intricate patterns, seemed to glow with an ethereal light. The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. "Magnifique," Poirot whispered, his eyes tracing the chalice's curves. "A masterpiece indeed." Madame Fournier stepped forward, her voice low and melodic. "This chalice," she said, "was crafted to honor St. Clair, patron of glassmakers. Its secrets are locked in its form, known only to those who understand the art of fire and sand." Hastings leaned toward Poirot. "Sounds like a lot of pomp for a cup," he muttered. Before Poirot could reply, a piercing scream shattered the moment. All eyes turned to Lady Evelyn, who pointed at the pedestal. The chalice lay in pieces, its fragments glinting like scattered stars on the polished floor. The room fell silent, save for the faint tinkle of glass. "Impossible!" Sir Reginald roared, his face puce with rage. "It was secure! Who did this?" Poirot's eyes narrowed, his mind eagerly at work. He stepped forward, his small frame commanding the room. "Calm yourself, Sir Reginald. The little grey cells, they are already in motion. This is no accident now. Someone in this room has a purpose most sinister." As the guests exchanged uneasy glances, Poirot knelt beside the wreckage, his gloved fingers hovering over a jagged shard. "The Chalice of St. Clair is broken," he said softly, "but its secrets, they are not yet lost. Hercule Poirot will find them. Hey, detective, quick question. Where in the world are you solving mysteries from? Drop your city in the comments. And if you want more twisted tales, hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow's case, it gets even creepier. Stay sharp." Chapter 2. The Glassmaker's Secret. The drawing-room of Vane Manor buzzed with whispered speculation as the guests milled about, their faces a mixture of shock and curiosity. The shattered remnants of the Chalice of St. Clair had been carefully gathered by the butler, Mr. Grayson, and placed in a velvet-lined box, as if to preserve the dignity of the ruined masterpiece. Hercule Poirot stood near the fireplace, his sharp eyes scanning the room, while Captain Hastings hovered at his side, visibly unsettled by the evening's turn of events. "Poirot, old chap," Hastings murmured, glancing at the assembled guests. "This business with the chalice, it's dashed peculiar. Who'd smash a thing like that? And how? It was right there in front of everyone." Poirot's moustache twitched as he adjusted his cufflinks. "Patience, mon ami. The how is a matter of mechanics, but the why, that is the heart of the matter. The chalice was not merely broken, it was destroyed with intent. We must discover the motive, and for that we must know the players." His gaze settled on Madame Celeste Fournier, who stood alone by a tall window, her silhouette framed against the darkening gardens. The glass-blower's composure was striking, her hands clasped calmly, yet Poirot sensed a storm beneath her serene exterior. He approached, with his characteristic bow, his voice smooth as velvet. "Madame Fournier, permit me to express my admiration for your artistry. The Chalice of St. Clair, it was a triumph, even in its brief moment of glory. Tell me, how did such a creation come to be in the possession of Sir Reginald?" Madame Fournier's eyes, dark and piercing, met his. "Monsieur Poirot, you flatter me. The chalice was commissioned by Sir Reginald's late father, Sir Henry Vane, some 20 years ago. It was a personal request, one I could not refuse, though it cost me dearly." A voice held a faint tremor, quickly suppressed. Poirot tilted his head, his expression one of polite curiosity. "Cost you dearly, madame? In time, perhaps, or in something more intangible?" She hesitated, her fingers tightening around a small locket at her throat. "The art of glass-blowing is not merely craft, monsieur. It is passion, sacrifice. The chalice was born of both, and its destruction—" She broke off, her lips pressing into a thin line. "It is a loss, but perhaps blind. It is a loss, but perhaps not an unexpected one." Hastings, standing a step behind, raised an eyebrow. "Not unexpected? You mean to say you knew someone might smash it?" Madame Fournier's smile was enigmatic. "I mean only that beauty invites envy, Captain Hastings. And envy can lead to reckless acts." Before Poirot could press further, Sir Reginald approached, his face still flushed with indignation. "Monsieur Poirot, I insist you get to the bottom of this. That chalice was worth a fortune, and its destruction is an affront to my family's legacy. Madame Fournier, you must know something of its history. Was there anyone who coveted it? A rival, perhaps?" Madame Fournier's gaze flickered towards Sir Reginald, and for a moment Poirot caught a glint of something. Anger, perhaps, or pain. "Sir Reginald," she said coolly, "the chalice was unique. Many admired it, but few understood its true value. As for rivals, I have none. My work speaks for itself." Poirot's eyes narrowed slightly. "And yet, madame, you speak of sacrifice. Perhaps there is a story behind this chalice, a story that Sir Reginald does not know." Sir Reginald frowned. "What's that?" "My father commissioned it, paid handsomely, I'm sure. What more is there to know?" Madame Fournier turned away, her voice barely above a whisper. "Some debts cannot be paid with gold, Sir Reginald." As she excused herself and glided toward the door, Poirot watched her closely, his mind turning over her words. Hastings leaned in, his voice low. "She's hiding something, Poirot. Did you see how she looked at Sir Reginald? There's bad blood there, mark my words." "Indeed, Hastings," Poirot replied, his fingers tapping lightly against his chin. "The little grey cells, they sense a history, a grievance perhaps, buried in the sands of time. This chalice, it was not just a work of art, it was a symbol, and its destruction is the first note in a symphony of revenge." Outside, the wind howled through the oaks, and Poirot's gaze lingered on the velvet box containing the chalice's fragments. The mystery had begun, and he knew that Madame Fournier held the key to its next chapter. Chapter 3. The Guests Assemble. The grand dining room of Vane Manor gleamed under the light of a crystal chandelier, its long mahogany table set with fine china and silver, for a dinner that now felt overshadowed by the evening's calamity. Hercule Poirot, seated to the right of Sir Reginald Vane, observed the assembled guests with the precision of a watchmaker examining cogs. Captain Hastings, opposite him, fidgeted with his napkin, his eyes darting between the faces, each one a potential culprit in the mystery of the shattered chalice of St. Clair. "Mon ami," Poirot murmured, leaning toward Hastings, "observe the guests. Each has a story, a secret perhaps. The little grey cells, they are most attentive tonight." Sir Reginald, at the head of the table, was attempting to salvage the evening's mood with forced joviality. "A toast, my friends, to resilience. The chalice may be gone, but Vane Manor endures, and we shall uncover the truth." His voice rang hollow, and the clink of glasses was tepid at best. Lady Evelyn Vane, seated beside her husband, sipped her wine with an air of detachment. Her delicate features, framed by a pearl choker, betrayed little emotion, but Poirot noted the faint tremor in her hand as she set down her glass. "Reginald," she said coolly, "perhaps we should postpone such grand gestures until Monsieur Poirot has had time to work." Across the table, Lionel Vane, Sir Reginald's nephew, flashed a charming smile that did not reach his calculating eyes. A man in his early 30s, with slicked-back hair and a tailored suit, he exuded ambition. "Quite right, Aunt Evelyn. Let's leave it to the famous detective. Though I must say it's a pity about the chalice. Such a valuable piece. Worth a small fortune, wasn't it, uncle?" Sir Reginald's face reddened. "Lionel, must you always reduce everything to pounds and shillings? The chalice was a family heirloom." Lionel shrugged, cutting into his pheasant. "Merely stating facts, uncle." "Heirlooms don't pay debts." Poirot's gaze shifted to Doctor. Alistair Crane, The archaeologist, who sat hunched over his plate, his spectacles slipping down his nose. His nervous fingers toyed with a fork, and he avoided eye contact, muttering to himself about historical significance. Poirot made a mental note. A man so uneasy in company often hides more than he reveals. Beside Dr. Crane sat Miss Clara Beaumont, a young heiress with a penchant for modern art, and a laugh that tinkled like the chandelier above. Her auburn curls bounced as she turned to Madame Celeste Fournier, who had rejoined the group with a composed demeanour. "Madam," Clara said, her voice bright but edged with curiosity, "you must be devastated about the chalice. Was it truly one of a kind?" Madame Fournier's lips curved into a faint smile. "Mademoiselle Beaumont, every piece I create is unique. The chalice of St. Clair was personal. Its loss is a wound, but wounds heal, do they not?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Madame, you speak of wounds with such calm. Perhaps you have known many." The table fell silent, all eyes on the glass-blower. She met Poirot's gaze steadily. "Life is not kind to those who create, Monsieur Poirot. One learns to endure." Hastings, unable to resist, blurted out, "But who'd want to destroy it? I mean, dash it all, it was just sitting there. Someone must have had a grudge." Sir Reginald coughed, clearly uncomfortable. "Let's not speculate wildly, Captain. Monsieur Poirot, have you any theories yet?" Poirot folded his hands neatly. "Theories, Sir Reginald, are like the pieces of your chalice, scattered, but not without order. I observe that each person here had the opportunity to approach the pedestal. The motive, however, that is what eludes us, for now." As the meal progressed, Poirot noted the undercurrents. Lionel's veiled barbs at his uncle, Lady Evelyn's distant silence, Doctor Crane's fidgeting, Clara's probing questions, and Madame Fournier's cryptic poise. The butler, Mr. Grayson, moved silently, his face impassive, yet Poirot caught him lingering near the door, as if listening. Dinner concluded with an uneasy air, and as the guests rose, Poirot whispered to Hastings, "The chalice was a spark, Hastings, and this manor is a tinder-box. Someone here has a secret that burns like fire. We must find it before it consumes them all." Chapter 4. A Whisper of Poison. The morning after the chalice's destruction dawned grey and heavy. The skies over Vane Manor cloaked in a mist that seemed to mirror the unease within its walls. Hercule Poirot, impeccably dressed despite the early hour, stood in the manor's library, his fingers tracing the spine of a leather-bound volume on Venetian glass. Captain Hastings, less composed, paced near a window, his brow furrowed. "Poirot, I can't shake the feeling that something worse is coming," Hastings said, his voice low. "That chalice business, it's like a warning shot. What if the culprit isn't done?" Poirot's eyes gleamed with quiet intensity. "Mon ami, you are not wrong. The shattering of the chalice was a gesture, a prelude. The little grey cells, they sense a darker purpose at work." Their conversation was interrupted by a piercing cry from the drawing-room. Poirot and Hastings hurried toward the sound, arriving to find a scene of chaos. Dr. Alistair Crane, the nervous archaeologist, lay slumped in an armchair, his face ashen, a half-empty glass of brandy spilled across his lap. Lady Evelyn Vane stood frozen, her hand pressed to her mouth, while Clara Beaumont knelt beside the man, shaking his shoulder in vain. "He's not breathing," Clara exclaimed, her voice trembling. "Oh, Monsieur Poirot, do something." Poirot knelt beside Dr. Crane, his gloved fingers gently lifting the man's wrist to check for a pulse. His lips pursed, as he noted the faint, bitter scent on the spilled brandy. "Alas, Mademoiselle Beaumont, the good doctor is beyond our age. This is no natural death." Sir Reginald burst into the room, his face a mask of shock. "Dead? Crane? But how? He was fine last night." Poirot's gaze swept the room, taking in the overturned glass, the faint frothed doctor, Crane's lips, and the horrified expressions of the guests gathering at the door. Madame Celeste Fournier stood at the threshold, her dark eyes unreadable, while Lionel Vane lingered behind her, his hands thrust into his pockets. "Poison, I suspect," Poirot said gravely, rising to his feet. "The odour of almonds. It is unmistakable." "Cyanide, perhaps. We must summon the authorities, but first I must ask, who prepared this brandy? The butler, Mr. Grayson stepped forward, his face pale but composed. "I poured it myself, Monsieur Poirot, from the decanter in the library. Dr. Crane requested a drink not 10 minutes ago. I swear there was nothing amiss." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And this decanter, it was accessible to all?" Grayson nodded reluctantly. "It sits on the sideboard, sir." "Anyone could have tampered with it." A murmur rippled through the guests. Lady Evelyn's voice cut through, sharp and brittle. "This is monstrous! First the chalice, now poor Dr. Crane. Are we all to be murdered in our beds?" "Calm yourself, Lady Evelyn," Poirot said soothingly. "Hercule Poirot is here, and no further harm shall come while I am present." "But I must know, what was Dr. Crane's connection to the chalice?" Lionel Vane spoke up, his tone casual, but his eyes sharp. "Crane was obsessed with it, kept prattling on about its historical significance, said it might be linked to some medieval legend. Frankly, I thought he was a bit cracked." Madame Fournier's voice was soft but piercing. "Dr. Crane was no fool. He understood the chalice's value, not merely as art, but as a symbol." "Perhaps he knew too much." Poirot turned to her, his expression keen. "Too much, madame." "And what might one know about a chalice that would warrant such a fate?" She met his gaze, unflinching. "Some truths are dangerous, Monsieur Poirot." The chalice was more than glass. It was a reckoning. Hastings, hovering near the body, whispered to Poirot, "She's talking in riddles again, Poirot. Do you think she slipped something into the brandy?" Poirot's response was a faint smile. "Patience, Hastings. The poison was in the glass, but the motive lies in the heart. We must learn why Dr. Crane was a threat, and how his death connects to the chalice's destruction." As the servants were dispatched to fetch the local constable, Poirot knelt once more beside the body, his eyes scanning for details. A small scrap of paper protruded from Dr. Crane's pocket, bearing a single word in shaky script, "Fournier." Poirot slipped it into his own pocket, unseen by the others, his mind racing. "The game, it grows more dangerous," he murmured. "The chalice was the first act, and now a life is taken. The glass-blower's revenge, it seems, has only begun." Chapter 5. The Hidden Workshop. The air in Vane Manor was thick with tension as the local constable, a doorman named Inspector Brooks, arrived to oversee the removal of Dr. Alistair Crane's body. Hercule Poirot, however, had little faith in the inspector's plodding methods. With Captain Hastings at his side, he slipped away from the drawing-room, where the guests remained under Brooks's watchful eye, to pursue a lead that tugged at his little grey cells. The note in Dr. Crane's pocket bearing Madame Fournier's name. "Poirot, where are we off to?" Hastings whispered, hurrying to keep pace as they navigated the manor's shadowy corridors. "Shouldn't we be questioning the guests?" "That note, It's practically a confession." Poirot's eyes twinkled in a dim light. "No, mon ami. A name is not a confession. It is a clue. Dr. Crane knew something about Madame Fournier, something connected to the Chalice. We must seek the place where secrets are forged, literally perhaps." They descended a narrow servant staircase, guided by Poirot's unerring instinct, until they reached a heavy oak door in the manor's west wing, half hidden behind a faded tapestry. Poirot's gloved hand traced the frame, finding a concealed latch. With a soft click, the door swung open, revealing a stone passageway that smelled faintly of charcoal and molten glass. "Good heavens, Poirot!" Hastings exclaimed, stepping into the chamber beyond. "A secret room!" It was no ordinary room, but a clandestine glass-blowing workshop. A small furnace glowed faintly in the corner, its embers casting eerie shadows across workbenches littered with tools, blowpipes, shears, and molds. Shelves held glass vials, colored powders, and half-finished goblets, their surfaces catching the light like frozen flames. At the center stood a wooden table, upon which lay a sketch of the Chalice of St. Clair, annotated in a precise feminine hand. Poirot's lips curved into a satisfied smile. "Voila, Hastings, the atelier of Madame Fournier, hidden within Vane Manor. This is where the Chalice was born, and perhaps where its fate was sealed." Hastings peered at the sketch, his brow furrowed. But why keep this a secret? Sir Reginald said the Chalice was commissioned years ago. Surely Madame Fournier didn't need to sneak about to make it. Poirot picked up a small vial of azure powder, sniffing it cautiously. The Chalice. It was not merely a commission, Hastings. It was a creation of passion, of pain. This workshop, it is too well-equipped, too personal, to be a mere guest's workspace. Madame Fournier has a deeper connection to this place. As Poirot examined the sketch, his eyes caught a detail, a tiny symbol etched in the margin, a crescent moon entwined with a rose. "Curieux," he murmured. "This symbol, it is not unfamiliar. I have seen it before, perhaps in the locket Madame Fournier wears." Before Hastings could respond, a faint creak echoed from the passageway. Poirot held up a hand, his senses alert. "We are not alone, mon ami," he whispered, motioning for silence. A shadow moved at the edge of the room, and Poirot stepped forward, his voice calm but commanding. "Show yourself, s'il vous plaît. Hercule Poirot does not appreciate uninvited guests." The figure hesitated, then stepped into the light. It was Mr. Grayson, the butler, his usually impassive face betraying a flicker of unease. "Monsieur Poirot, I was merely checking the premises. After Dr. Crane's death, Sir Reginald asked me to ensure nothing else was amiss." Poirot's gaze was piercing. "And yet you find yourself in a hidden workshop, Monsieur Grayson. Tell me, how long have you known of this place?" Grayson's jaw tightened. I've known of it for years, sir. It was used by Sir Henry Vane, Sir Reginald's father, for his private experiments. Madame Fournier was permitted to use it during her visits. I thought nothing of it permitted." Poirot's tone was sharp, or perhaps she claimed it as her own. "Tell me, what was the nature of her work here?" Grayson shifted uncomfortably. "I'm no expert, sir. She made glass, beautiful things. But after Sir Henry's death, she rarely came. Until this week, that is." Poirot nodded, filing the information away. "Merci, Monsieur Grayson. You may go, but rest assured I shall have more questions." As the butler retreated, Hastings turned to Poirot, his eyes wide. "This place gives me the creeps, Poirot. Do you think Madame Fournier poisoned Crane from here? She could have mixed anything in those powders. Poirot's fingers tapped his chin. Possible, Hastings, but too simple. The chalice, the poison, the note, they are threads in a tapestry of revenge. This workshop holds secrets, and we shall unravel them. But first, we must learn what Dr. Crane discovered that cost him his life. As they left the workshop, sealing the door behind them, Poirot's mind churned. The crescent moon and rose, Madame Fournier's presence, and now a hidden atelier. Each piece was falling into place, but the picture remained tantalizingly incomplete. Chapter 6. Shadows of Vengeance. The library of Van Manor was a sanctuary of polished oak and leather-bound tomes, its air heavy with the scent of aged paper and wax. Hercule Poirot stood before a towering bookshelf, his gloved fingers delicately handling a bundle of yellowed letters he had discovered tucked behind a volume of Pliny's Natural History. Captain Hastings, ever restless, leaned over, his shoulder, his curiosity barely contained. "Poirot, what have you got there?" Hastings asked, peering at the faded ink. "Letters? From whom?" Poirot's eyes gleamed as he untied the ribbon binding the bundle. "Patience, mon ami. These are not mere letters. They are whispers from the past, and the past, it seems, has much to say about Madame Fournier and the Vane family." The letters, dated some 20 years prior, were addressed to Sir Henry Vane, Sir Reginald's late father, and penned in the elegant looping script of a younger Celeste Fournier. Poirot read silently, his lips moving slightly as he absorbed their contents. The first letter spoke of her gratitude for Sir Henry's patronage, her joy in crafting the Chalice of St. Clair for him. But as Poirot turned to later letters, the tone shifted. Gratitude gave way to desperation, then to veiled anger. "Listen, Hastings," Poirot said, his voice low. "This, from Madame Fournier, dated 1905. You promised me justice, Sir Henry, yet you offer only silence. My work, my name, you have taken both, and left me nothing. The chalice binds us, but it will not absolve you." Hastings's eyes widened. "Good Lord, Poirot! Sounds like she had a bone to pick with Sir Henry. But what's this about justice? Did he swindle her?" Poirot's fingers tapped the letter thoughtfully. "Not swindle, perhaps, but betray. The chalice was no ordinary commission, Hastings. It was a pact, and Sir Henry broke it. These letters suggest a personal connection, a debt unpaid." Before Hastings could respond, the library door creaked open, and Lady Evelyn Vane entered, her silk gown rustling softly. Her face, usually composed, bore a trace of unease. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, I heard you were here." I must speak with you." Poirot bowed slightly, slipping the letters into his pocket. "Lady Evelyn, your presence is most welcome. Perhaps you can shed light on these matters. Tell me, what do you know of Madame Fournier's history with your late father-in-law?" Lady Evelyn's hand fluttered to her pearl choker, a nervous gesture. "I was only a young bride when Sir Henry was alive, but I heard whispers. He was a collector, passionate about rare artifacts, especially glass. Madame Fournier was his protégée of sorts. She came to the manor often, worked in that hidden workshop you found. But there was a falling out, something about the chalice. Sir Henry claimed it as his own design, I believe, and Celeste, she never forgave him." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Claimed her design? A grave accusation, Lady Evelyn. And this feud, it lingered?" She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Celeste left England after Sir Henry's death, but when Reginald invited her back to unveil the chalice, I warned him it was unwise. She's proud, Monsieur Poirot, and pride wounded can turn to vengeance. Hastings, unable to contain himself, blurted out, "Vengeance? You think she slashed the chalice herself? Or, dash it all, poisoned Doctor?" Crane, Lady Evelyn paled. "I accuse no one, Captain, but Celeste's eyes, they burn with an old fire. And Dr. Crane, he was asking questions about the chalice's origins, poking into old records. Perhaps he stirred something best left buried." Poirot's mind raced, the letters and Lady Evelyn's words forming a mosaic of motive. "Merci, Lady Evelyn. Your candour is most illuminating. Tell me, these records, Doctor." Crane thought, where might they be kept? She hesitated, then gestured to a locked cabinet in the corner. "Sir Henry's private papers are there. Only Reginald has the key, but I fear what they might reveal." As Lady Evelyn excused herself, Poirot turned to Hastings, his expression grave. "The chalice was not merely a work of art, Hastings. It was a symbol of betrayal. And Dr. Crane, he uncovered this truth. We must see these papers, but we must also tread carefully. The shadow of vengeance stretches long, and it has claimed one life already." Outside, the mist thickened around Vane Manor, and Poirot felt the weight of the mystery pressing closer. The letters in his pocket were a key, but to what lock? Only the little grey cells could tell. Chapter 7. The Alibi Unravels. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the parquet floor of Vane Manor's morning room, where Hercule Poirot had gathered the guests for what he called a little exercise of the grey cells. The air was taut with unease, the memory of Dr. Crane's lifeless body still fresh in everyone's minds. Captain Hastings stood by the window, his arms crossed, watching as Poirot paced slowly before the assembled company. Sir Reginald Vane, Lady Evelyn, Lionel Vane, Clara Beaumont, Madame Celeste Fournier, and the butler, Mr. Grayson. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice measured, "the destruction of the chalice of St. Clair and the murder of Dr. Crane are not separate tragedies, no. They are threads in the same tapestry, woven with purpose. To unravel this, I must know where each of you was at two critical moments, when the chalice was shattered and when Dr. Crane was poisoned." Sir Reginald blustered, his moustache quivering. "Monsieur Poirot, I was hosting my guests when the chalice was broken. Everyone saw me. And this morning I was in my study going over accounts." Poirot nodded, his eyes flicking to Lady Evelyn. "And you, madame?" Lady Evelyn's fingers tightened around her fan. "I was with Clara in the drawing-room before the unveiling, discussing the floral arrangements. This morning I was in my boudoir, writing letters." Clara Beaumont nodded eagerly. "That's right, Monsieur Poirot." "Lady Evelyn and I were together until the scream. As for this morning, I was in the conservatory, sketching the roses." Alone, I'm afraid Poirot's gaze shifted to Madame Fournier, who stood with her characteristic poise. "And you, madame?" "Your movements, they are of particular interest." Madame Fournier's dark eyes met his, without flinching. "At the unveiling, I was near the pedestal, admiring my work, as you saw. This morning, I was in my room, resting. The events of last night were taxing." Hastings muttered under his breath, "Convenient, that." Poirot shot him a warning glance before turning to Mr. Grayson. The butler bowed slightly. "I was serving drinks during the unveiling, sir, and this morning I was in the pantry preparing the brandy decanter before Dr. Crane requested his drink." Finally, Poirot's attention settled on Lionel Vane, who lounged in his chair with an air of nonchalance, though his fingers drummed restlessly on the armrest. "Monsieur Lionel, your account, s'il vous plaît." Lionel flashed a disarming smile. "Simple enough, Monsieur Poirot. I was mingling with the guests when the Chalice was smashed. Clara can vouch for me. We chatted briefly about her art collection. This morning I was out for a walk in the gardens. Needed some air, you know." Clara hesitated, her cheeks flushing. "Well, yes, we spoke, but only for a moment. I don't recall seeing you after the unveiling began." Lionel's smile faltered, and Poirot pounced. "A moment, you say? Yet the Chalice was shattered mere minutes after the unveiling. And this morning, Monsieur Lionel, did anyone see you in the gardens?" Lionel's eyes narrowed. "I don't keep a diary of my strolls, Poirot." "I was alone. Surely you don't suspect me of tampering with the brandy?" Poirot's moustache twitched. "I suspect nothing, monsieur. I observe that your alibi, it is, how do you say, flimsy. The gardens are vast, but they are near the library, where the decanter was kept." Sir Reginald slammed his fist on the table. "This is outrageous. Lionel is family, Poirot. He'd have no reason to harm Crane or destroy my Chalice." Poirot raised a hand, his voice calm but firm. "Reason, Sir Reginald, is what we seek, and motive, it hides in the shadows of opportunity. Monsieur Lionel, you spoke of the Chalice's value at dinner, of debts unpaid. Perhaps you saw an opportunity to resolve certain financial matters." Lionel's face reddened, but his tone remained defiant. "I'm no murderer, Poirot. And as for the Chalice, it was just a bauble. Valuable, yes, but hardly worth killing over." Poirot's eyes gleamed. Yet someone thought it worth destroying, and Dr. Crane thought it worth dying for. The question is why? As the guests dispersed, their alibis ringing hollow in the tense air, Hastings sidled up to Poirot. "You've got Lionel on the ropes, Poirot. His story doesn't hold water. Do you think he's our man?" Poirot shook his head. "Not yet, Hastings. Lionel's alibi is weak, but so are others. The truth, it lies not in one man, but in the connections between them all. The letters, the workshop, the note in Crane's, the pocket, they point to a deeper game. We must watch closely, for the next move is coming." As they left the morning room, Poirot's mind churned, the cracks in Lionel's alibi a mere glimpse of the larger puzzle. The shadow of vengeance was growing, and he sensed it was far from finished. Chapter 8. The Midnight Forge. The clock in Vane Manor's great hall struck midnight, its chimes echoing through the silent corridors like a warning. Hercule Poirot, clad in a dark overcoat to blend with the shadows, led Captain Hastings through the dimly lit west wing toward the hidden, glass-blowing workshop. The discovery of the letters and Lionel Vane's faltering alibi had sharpened Poirot's instincts, and he sensed the workshop held more secrets yet to be uncovered. "Poirot, this feels like something out of a penny dreadful," Hastings whispered, clutching a small torch. "Sneaking about at midnight. Are you sure we'll catch someone?" Poirot's eyes gleamed in the faint light. "Mon ami, the guilty, they do not sleep soundly. The workshop, it is the heart of this mystery, and tonight, I suspect, it will beat once more." They reached the concealed door behind the tapestry, and Poirot eased it open with practiced care. The air inside the workshop was warm, tinged with the acrid scent of charcoal. The furnace, which had been mere embers during their earlier visit, now glowed faintly, as if recently stoked. Poirot motioned for Hastings to extinguish the torch, and they crouched behind a workbench, shrouded in darkness. Minutes passed, heavy with anticipation, until a soft creak announced the arrival of two figures. The first was Madame Celeste Fournier, her silk shawl slipping from her shoulders as she lit a single candle, casting flickering shadows across the room. The second figure, to Hastings's barely suppressed gasp, was Clara Beaumont, her auburn curls tucked under a scarf, her usual vivacity replaced by a furtive intensity. "Celeste, is it safe?" Clara whispered, glancing nervously toward the door. "If anyone finds us here." Madame Fournier's voice was low, urgent. "We have no choice, Clara." Crane's death changes everything. He knew too much, and now Poirot is sniffing about. "We must finish what we started." Poirot's fingers tightened around the edge of the workbench, his mind racing. Hastings, barely containing himself, leaned close. "Finish what, Poirot?" "Are they confessing?" Poirot raised a finger to his lips, his eyes fixed on the women. Madame Fournier moved to the furnace, retrieving a small glass vial from a hidden compartment. Its contents glinted ominously in the candlelight. "This," she said, holding it up, "is the last piece. The chalice was only the beginning. They'll pay for what was taken from me." Clara's hands trembled as she took the vial, her voice barely audible. "But Celeste, murder?" "I agreed to help with the chalice, but this doctor—" Crane was harmless. Madame Fournier's eyes flashed. "Harmless?" "He was digging into the past, Clara, just like Henry Vane. He found the records, the ones that prove what they did to me. If Poirot gets those papers, it's over Poirot's mind word, the pieces of the puzzle shifting. The letters, the crescent moon and rose symbol, the betrayal by Sir Henry, Madame Fournier's words confirmed a vendetta, but the vial suggested a plan far darker than the chalice's destruction." Before Clara could respond, a board creaked under Hastings' foot, and the women froze. Madame Fournier spun toward the sound, her hand closing around a blowpipe as if it were a weapon. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice sharp as glass. Poirot rose smoothly, his demeanor unruffled. "It is only Hercule Poirot, madame, and my friend Captain Hastings. We could not help but overhear your most illuminating conversation." Clara gasped, dropping the vial, which rolled across the floor but did not break. Madame Fournier's face hardened, though her composure held. "Monsieur Poirot, you are meddlesome." "This is a private matter." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Private, perhaps, but murder, it is never private. You speak of records, of payment for past wrongs. Tell me, what did Sir Henry Vane take from you that warrants such vengeance?" Madame Fournier's lips parted, then closed, her eyes burning with defiance. Clara, trembling, spoke instead. "It's not what you think, Monsieur Poirot. Celeste didn't kill Dr. Crane. She only wanted to destroy the chalice, to hurt Reginald as he hurt her." "Enough, Clara," Madame Fournier snapped, but Poirot's gaze was relentless. "No, mademoiselle, speak. The truth, it is the only path now. The vial, what is its purpose?" Clara hesitated, then whispered, "It's not poison. It's a dye to mark another piece, to expose the truth about the chalice's origins." Poirot nodded slowly, retrieving the vial and slipping it into his pocket. "We shall see, mademoiselle. But know this, Hercule Poirot will uncover every secret in this manner, and no shadow will hide the guilty." As he and Hastings escorted the women back to the main house, Poirot's mind churned. The vial, the meeting, Clara's fear, they were pieces of a larger design, but the heart of the mystery remained elusive. The forge had revealed a glimpse of truth, but the flames of vengeance still burned. Chapter 9. The Second Crime. The dawn broke over Vane Manor with a deceptive calm, the mist curling around the estate like a shroud. Hercule Poirot, sleepless but immaculate, sat in the library, the mysterious vial from the workshop resting on the table before him. Captain Hastings, rubbing his eyes, paced restlessly, still shaken by the midnight encounter with Madame Fournier and Clara Beaumont. Poirot, that vial, die or not, it's proof they're up to something, Hastings said, his voice edged with frustration. But why all this cloak and dagger? Nonsense. If Madame Fournier wanted revenge, why not just confront Sir Reginald? Poirot's fingers tapped the vial lightly. Revenge, mon ami, is not always a shout. Sometimes it is a whisper, a plan woven over years. This vial, it is not the weapon, but a symbol of intent. We must— His words were cut short by a blood-curdling scream from the upper floors. Poirot and Hastings bolted from the library, following the sound to the grand staircase, where a small crowd had gathered. At the foot of the stairs lay Lionel Vane, his body crumpled, a trickle of blood seeping from a gash on his temple. Clara Beaumont stood above him, her hands clasped over her mouth, while Sir Reginald bellowed for the servants to fetch a doctor. "Mon Dieu!" Poirot exclaimed, kneeling beside Lionel. He pressed a handkerchief to the wound, checking for a pulse. "He lives, but only just." "Quickly, Hastings, help me move him to the sofa." As they carefully lifted Lionel to a nearby drawing-room, Poirot's sharp eyes scanned the scene. A heavy brass candlestick lay discarded near the stairs, its base stained with blood. The carpet showed signs of a struggle, scuff marks and a torn piece of fabric, silk, matching the shade of Clara's scarf from the previous night. Inspector Brooks, summoned once more, arrived with a huff, his notebook already open. "Another attack. This man is cursed, I say. Monsieur Poirot, what's your take on this?" Poirot's expression was grave. "This is no accident, Inspector." The candlestick, it was wielded with force, but not with precision. The attacker meant to harm, perhaps to kill, but was interrupted. "We must question those present," Clara, trembling, spoke first, her voice barely steady. "I found him, Monsieur Poirot. I was coming down for breakfast when I saw him lying there. I swear I didn't touch him." Poirot's gaze was piercing. "And yet, mademoiselle, this fabric, it is from your scarf, no? You were in the workshop last night, plotting with Madame Fournier. Did Lionel discover your plans?" Clara's eyes widened, tears spilling over. "No. I lost my scarf yesterday. Anyone could have taken it. Lionel he was asking me about the chalice, about Celeste. He said he knew something, but he wouldn't tell me what." Madame Fournier, standing at the edge of the group, spoke cruelly. "Monsieur Poirot, you leap to conclusions. Lionel was a greedy man, always scheming. Perhaps he crossed someone else in this house. Sir Reginald, his face ashen, clutched his wife's arm. Lionel's my heir, Poirot. If he dies, the estate, it's in chaos. Who would do this?" Lady Evelyn, pale but composed, murmured, "Perhaps someone who wanted the estate for themselves." Lionel was not universally loved. Poirot's mind raced, the pieces shifting. The candlestick, the torn silk, Lionel's questions about the chalice. They pointed to a motive tied to the Vane family's legacy. He turned to Mr. Grayson, who hovered nearby, his face impassive. "Monsieur Grayson, you were on duty this morning. Did you see anyone near the stairs?" The butler hesitated, then nodded. "I saw Miss Beaumont descending, sir, but no one else." The house was quiet until the scream Hastings whispered to Poirot. "Clara, again, Poirot. She's in it up to her neck. Mark my words." Poirot's response was a faint shake of his head. "No, Hastings. The evidence, it is too convenient. Someone wishes us to believe Mademoiselle Beaumont is guilty. The true culprit. They are cleverer than that." As the doctor arrived to tend to Lionel, who stirred faintly, Poirot pocketed the torn silk, his eyes scanning the staircase for further clues. A faint smudge of ash on the banister caught his attention, ash like that from the workshop's furnace. "The forge burns again," he murmured, "and with it the flames of vengeance." Chapter 10. The Art of Deception. The late morning light filtered through the heavy drapes of Vane Nana's study, where Hercule Poirot stood before Sir Reginald's locked cabinet, the key to which the baronet had reluctantly provided after Lionel's attack. Captain Hastings hovered nearby, his nerves frayed by the escalating violence. The smudge of ash on the staircase, the torn silk, and the vial from the workshop swirled in Poirot's mind, each a thread in the tapestry of deceit he was determined to unravel. "Poirot, this is getting out of hand," Hastings said, glancing at the cabinet. "First Crane, now Lionel nearly killed. Are you sure those papers will tell us anything?" Poirot's moustache twitched as he turned the key, the lock clicking softly. "Mon ami, papers are the silent witnesses of human folly. They hold secrets, promises broken, identities concealed. Let us see what Sir Henry's records reveal." The cabinet opened to reveal a trove of documents, ledgers, contracts, and a bundle of correspondence tied with a faded ribbon. Poirot's gloved fingers sifted through them, pausing on a contract dated 1905, concerning the commission of the Chalice of St. Clair. The document bore Sir Henry Vane's signature, but the artist's name was not Celeste Fournier. It was Marie Dubois, with the crescent moon and rose symbol Poirot had seen in the workshop. "Curieux," Poirot murmured, holding the contract to the light. "Marie Dubois, yet Madame Fournier claims the chalice as her own. Why the discrepancy?" Hastings frowned. "A pseudonym, perhaps. Artists use them sometimes, don't they?" Poirot shook his head. "No, Hastings, this is no mere pseudonym. Look, the signature. It is too precise, too practised." And here he pointed to a letter tucked beneath the contract, a note from Sir Henry to this Marie Dubois, promising her full credit for the chalice, but only if she relinquishes all claims to it. Hastings's eyes widened. "Relinquish? That's outright theft. Do you think, sir, Henry stole the chalice's design from this Dubois woman, and she's really Madame Fournier?" Before Poirot could respond, the door creaked open, and Mr. Grayson entered, carrying a tray of tea. His eyes flicked to the open cabinet, and Poirot noted a fleeting tension in his posture. "Pardon, gentlemen," Grayson said smoothly. "Sir Reginald thought you might need refreshment." "Merci, Monsieur Grayson," Poirot said, his tone genial but his gaze sharp. "Tell me, you served Sir Henry for many years. Did you ever meet a Mademoiselle Marie Dubois?" Grayson's hand paused on the teapot, almost imperceptibly. "Marie Dubois? I recall the name, sir. A glass-blower, I believe, who visited the manor long ago." She left abruptly after some disagreement with Sir Henry. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "A disagreement, you say?" "And yet Madame Fournier, she too worked closely with Sir Henry. Is it possible they were one and the same?" Grayson's face remained impassive, but his fingers tightened on the tray. "I couldn't say, sir. That was before my time as head butler. As Grayson retreated, Poirot turned back to the documents, uncovering a final piece. A faded photograph of a young woman strikingly similar to Madame Fournier, standing beside Sir Henry in the workshop. The back bore an inscription, Marie and Henry, 1904. Yet the woman's locket, visible in the photograph, matched the one Madame Fournier wore now. "Hastings," Poirot said softly, "we have stumbled upon a deception most profound. Madame Fournier, or Marie Dubois, was robbed of her creation by Sir Henry. But why reclaim the name Fournier? And why now?" Hastings scratched his head. Perhaps she wanted to hide her past. But how does this tie to Crane's murder or Lionel's attack? Poirot's fingers tapped the photograph. Dr. Crane, he was researching the Chalice's origins. He found this connection, perhaps, and it cost him his life. Lionel, too, was asking questions. The Chalice's destruction was a message, but the murders, they are to silence those who know too much. A sudden commotion from the hall interrupted them. Clara Beaumont burst in, her face pale. "Monsieur Poirot, it's Lionel. He's awake. He's saying wild things about the Chalice, about a forgery." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "A forgery, mademoiselle. Lead me to him at once." As they hurried to Lionel's bedside, Poirot clutched the photograph and contract, his mind racing. The web of lies was unraveling, but the truth remained just out of reach, hidden in the shadows of a stolen identity and a vengeful heart. Chapter 11. The Gathering Storm. The grand hall of Vane Manor was a cathedral of opulence, its high ceilings adorned with frescoes, and its walls lined with ancestral portraits that seemed to watch the assembled company with silent judgment. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre, his small frame commanding the room. As the suspects gathered in a semicircle, Sir Reginald Vane, red-faced and indignant, Lady Evelyn, her composure strained, Clara Beaumont, wringing her hands, Madame Celeste Fournier, her dark eyes unreadable, and Mr. Grayson, the butler, standing stiffly at the edge. Lionel Vane, still pale from his attack but ambulatory, leaned on a cane, his gaze flickering with unease. Captain Hastings stood by the door, ready to prevent any sudden exits, while Inspector Brooks hovered with his notebook, looking increasingly out of his depth. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice clear and measured, "we stand in the shadow of two crimes, the destruction of the Chalice of St. Clair and the murder of Dr. Alistair Crane, followed by the near-fatal attack on Monsieur Lionel. These acts are not random, no. They are the work of a mind consumed by vengeance, a mind that has woven a tapestry of deception over many years." Sir Reginald sputtered, "Vengeance! Monsieur Poirot, I demand answers. Who smashed my chalice? Who killed Crane and attacked my nephew?" Poirot raised a hand, his eyes gleaming. "Patience, Sir Reginald. The little grey cells, they have been at work, and they have uncovered a story of betrayal, theft, and hidden identities. Let us begin with the chalice." He produced the contract from Sir Henry's cabinet, holding it aloft. "This document, signed in 1905, names Marie Dubois as the creator of the Chalice of St. Clair. Yet Madame Fournier claims it as her own. Why the discrepancy? Because, mesdames et messieurs, Madame Fournier is Marie Dubois, or was, until Sir Henry Vaughan stole her work, claiming the chalice as his own design." Madame Fournier's face remained impassive, but her fingers tightened around her locket. "A bold accusation, Monsieur Poirot," she said softly, "but you have no proof." Poirot smiled faintly. "The proof, madame, is in the letters you wrote to Sir Henry, pleading for justice, and in the photograph of you as Marie Dubois, standing beside him in the workshop. The crescent moon and rose, your mark, binds you to the chalice." Clara Beaumont gasped, her eyes darting to Madame Fournier. "Celeste, is it true? You never told me." "Silence, Clara," Madame Fournier snapped, her voice sharp as glass. But Poirot pressed on. "The chalice's destruction was your act of defiance, was it not, madame? A symbol of your stolen legacy, shattered to wound Sir Reginald as his father wounded you. But Dr. Crane, he discovered your true identity and the chalice's origins. His questions threatened to expose you. Your true identity and the chalice's origins. His questions threatened to expose you, and so he was poisoned." Lionel Vane, gripping his cane, interjected, "That's all well and good, Poirot, but what about me? I was attacked. I told you. I found out the chalice was a forgery, not in design, but in its history. Someone's been hiding the truth about its value." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Précisément, Monsieur Lionel. You, too, were digging into the past, perhaps hoping to profit from the chalice's true origins, but someone wished to silence you. The candlestick, the torn silk, they point to Mademoiselle Beaumont, yet the evidence is too perfect, no?" Clara's voice rose, trembling. "I didn't touch him. I swear, Monsieur Poirot, I only helped Celeste with the chalice, to mark it with dye, to show it was hers." Poirot turned to Lady Evelyn, whose pale face betrayed a flicker of fear. "And you, Lady Evelyn, you knew of Sir Henry's deception. Did you fear the truth would ruin your family's name?" Lady Evelyn's lips parted, but no words came. Sir Reginald roared, "This is preposterous. My father was an honourable man." Poirot's gaze shifted to Mr. Grayson, who stood rigid. "And you, Monsieur Grayson, the silent observer. You knew of the workshop, of Marie Dubois, of the feud. Did you protect your master's secrets, or did you have your own?" Grayson's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Poirot paced slowly, his voice rising. "The truth! It is close, mes amis. The vial, the ash, the forged documents, they point to a plan years in the making. But one question remains. Who struck the final blow?" The room fell silent, the tension like a storm about to break. Hastings whispered, "Poirot, you've got them all on edge. What's next?" Poirot's eyes gleamed with certainty. "Next, mon ami, we reveal the final piece, the heart of the glass-blower's revenge." Chapter 12. The Final Twist. The grand hall of Vane Manor seemed to hold its breath as Hercule Poirot stood before the assembled suspects, his small figure radiating an unshakable authority. The chandelier above cast prismatic light across the room, mirroring the shattered fragments of the chalice of St. Clair, which lay in its velvet box on a nearby table. Captain Hastings, stationed by the door, watched with bated breath, while Inspector Brooks gripped his notebook, sensing the moment of truth. Sir Reginald Vane, Lady Evelyn, Clara Beaumont, Madame Celeste Fournier, Lionel Vane, and Mr. Grayson stood or sat, their faces a gallery of fear, defiance, and anticipation. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice steady and resonant, "the crimes at Vane Manor, the destruction of the chalice, the murder of Dr. Crane, the attack on Monsieur Lionel, are not mere acts of passion. They are the culmination of a vendetta, a masterpiece of deception crafted over decades. Tonight, Hercule Poirot will reveal the artist behind this dark work." He turned to Madame Fournier, whose dark eyes met his with a flicker of challenge. "Madame, or shall I say Mademoiselle Marie Dubois, you were betrayed by Sir Henry Vane, who claimed your chalice as his own, robbing you of your legacy. The letters, the photograph, the crescent moon and rose, they confirm your identity. You returned to shatter the chalice, a symbol of that theft, none. Madame Fournier's lips curved faintly. You are correct, Monsieur Poirot. I destroyed the chalice to reclaim my soi disant honor, but I did not kill Dr. Crane, nor did I attack Lionel Poirot. Nodded, his gaze shifting to Clara Beaumont, who trembled under his scrutiny. Mademoiselle Beaumont, you aided Madame Fournier, marking the chalice with dye to expose its true origins. But your scarf, found at the scene of Lionel's attack, it was too convenient, was it not? Clara's voice broke. I told you I lost it. I didn't touch Lionel. Précisément, Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. The evidence was placed to incriminate you, just as the vial in the workshop was meant to mislead. The true culprit wished to hide in plain sight Sir Reginald Rose, his face puce. Enough games, Poirot. Who is it? Who killed Crane and attacked my nephew? Poirot's gaze settled on Mr. Grayson, the butler, who stood rigidly at the edge of the group. Monsieur Grayson, you have been the silent observer, the faithful servant. But you knew of the workshop, of Marie Dubois, of Sir Henry's betrayal. You served him for years, yet you also served another master, your own ambition. Grayson's composure cracked, his hands clenching. What are you implying, sir? Poirot produced the note from Dr. Crane's pocket, bearing the word Fournier. This note, found on Dr. Crane, was not written by him. The script matches your hand, Monsieur Grayson, found in the manor's ledgers. You planted it to cast suspicion on Madame Fournier, and the ash on the staircase from the workshop's furnace, it was on your shoes, not Clara's. Hastings gasped. The butler. But why, Poirot? Poirot's voice grew grave. Grayson was no mere servant. He was Sir Henry's confidant, privy to his secrets. When Sir Henry stole Marie Dubois' design, Grayson helped conceal it, forging documents to erase her name. But he also kept those documents, a leverage for his own gain. Years later, when Madame Fournier returned as Celeste, Grayson saw an opportunity. Dr. Crane, researching the chalice, uncovered the forgery. Grayson poisoned him with cyanide, taken from the workshop's chemicals to protect his secret. Lionel, leaning on his cane, interjected, And me? Why attack me? You, Monsieur Lionel, were greedy, Poirot said. You suspected the chalice's history was falsified, and hoped to blackmail Grayson, who stood to lose his position and his hidden wealth if exposed. He struck you with the candlestick, planting Clara's scarf to shift blame. Grayson's face twisted, his calm facade shattering. You have no proof, Poirot. I served this family loyally. Poirot held up the contract and photograph. The proof is here, in your forged signatures, in the ash you could not wash away. And the vial of dye, it was your attempt to make Madame Fournier's act seem like murder, to cover your own. With a cry, Grayson lunged for the door, but Hastings and Inspector Brooks seized him. As he was restrained, Madame Fournier stepped forward, her voice soft but piercing. You took everything from me, Grayson. My work, my name, but I only wanted the truth. Poirot bowed slightly. And the truth, madame, has been restored. The chalice is gone, but your legacy endures. As Grayson was led away, Sir Reginald sank into a chair, his voice hollow. My father, he caused all this. Poirot's eyes softened. He did, Sir Reginald. Good justice it is served, and Vane Manor may now find peace. Later, as Poirot and Hastings prepared to leave, Hastings shook his head. A butler, Poirot. I never saw it coming." "You're a marvel," Poirot smiled, adjusting his hat. "The little brave cells, Hastings. They see what others overlook. And now, mon ami, let us return to London, where the air is less heavy with secrets."